Hello students, I am Anju Mathur of Raval Convent School. Today I am going to explain you the poem Mending Wall by Robert Frost. Before moving to the explanation of the poem, let's learn about the poet. Robert Frost was born on March 26, 1874 in San Francisco. After the death of his father, he moved with his mother and sister to Lawrence. He became interested in reading and writing poetry during his high school years. Frost drifted a string of occupations after leaving school, working as a teacher, cobbler, and editor. His first published poem, My Butterfly, appeared on November 8, 1894, in the New York newspaper The Independent. In 1895, Frost got married to Mariam, who was a major inspiration for his poetry until her death in 1938. The couple moved to England in 1912 after they had tried and failed in farming. Frost was influenced by the British poets. Ezra Pound, a British poet, helped Frost to promote and publish his work. Robert Frost lived and taught for many years in Permanent. He died in Boston on January 29, 1963. Now comes setting of the poem. This poem is set at the site of the stone wall between the farms of two hard-working men of New England, one of whom is the poet himself. There is speculation on how the said wall has come to be broken. There is the talk of rebuilding the wall as well. Explanation of the poem. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen ground swell under it, and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gap even two can pass abreast. The poem consists of 46 lines in total. These lines are not divided into stanzas. Here, they are divided into meaningful segments in order to make the poem easier to follow and understand. This poem is written in the first person. Hence, we can safely assume that the speaker of the poem is the poet himself. In these lines, the poet speculates that there must be something in the vicinity that breaks down the wall again and again. Perhaps the water beneath the ground is frozen and the resulting ice expands to cause cracks in the wall and to make the boulders at its top fall down. The crack then grows until it is so wide that the two people can pass through it side by side, walk in the same direction. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair. When they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding. To please the yelping dogs, the gaps I mean. No one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time we find them there. In these lines, the poet rejects the idea that the wall could have been broken by hunters. He himself has made repairs after hunters have rearranged the stones to allow rabbits to come out of their holes for their dogs to catch. However, the gaps that have now appeared on the wall have been made by something that is unseen and unheard. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go. In these lines, the poet says that the wall is between two lands, separated by a hill. The farmer who lives on the other side of the hill is informed about the hole. A day is fixed on which they both meet and walk along the wall, each on his side, surveying the damage. To each the boulders that have fallen to each, and some are loaves and some so nearly balls. We have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. In these lines, the poet says he and his neighbor each take it upon themselves to restore the boulders that have fallen on his side of the hill. However, this is a difficult task since the stones are not always of the same size or shape. Some are oblong and some are round, and only magic can hold them in their places. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side, it comes to a lower, little more. There, where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine, and I am an apple orchard. In these lines, the poet says that his hands, as well as his neighbor's hands, become calloused as a result of picking up the heavy boulders. It feels like they are playing some sort of game where there is only one opponent on each team. It seems like play rather than work because the wall is wholly unnecessary since the two farmers grow a different kind of plants. The poet grows apples and his neighbor grows pine trees. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. In these lines, the poet says that he has tried to tell his neighbor that his apple trees will never encroach upon his pines, but that the neighbor remains unconvinced. His logic in putting up the wall is that all good neighbors are separated by strong fences. However, in the springtime, the poet feels mischievous and tries to convince his neighbor to agree with him in another way. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it? Where there are cows, but here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I would ask to know what I was wailing in or wailing out, and to whom I was like to give offense. In these lines, the poet asks his neighbor why good fences make good neighbors. Fences often sprout some greenery on them and they attract cows, but there are no cows where the wall between their farms has broken down. In fact, the poet would like to know what he is keeping out and what he is protecting by building the wall, and also who might not take kindly to the idea of the wall being put up. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say Elvis to him, but it's not Elvis exactly, and I would rather he said it for himself. I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top, in each hand like an old stone, savage armed. In these lines, the poet again speculates that the wall could have been pulled down by the elves, but he doesn't want to tell his serious neighbor that, hoping instead that the neighbor would come to the same conclusion by himself. As the neighbor works on rebuilding the wall, the poet feels that he resembles an uncouth and uncivilized inhabitant of the Stone Age, whose weapons are those very rocks which make up the wall. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods, only and the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors. In these lines, the poet suggests that his neighbor has some kind of kinship with darkness, but not just the darkness that is caused by the shade of trees in the forest. The neighbor cannot disagree with his father in saying that good fences account for peace among neighbors. Now comes the central idea. The wall between the lands of two farmers is broken down by some unknown force every spring, and they must rebuild it. The poet himself does not want the wall there and tries to convince his neighbor of the same. However, his neighbor is sure that the fences are required to maintain peaceful relations with neighbors. Now, conclusion of the poem. Mending Wall is a typical of Frost's style of writing. It describes something simple only to preach something far more profound. Frost's message about the dispensability of borders is an important one to be making in 1914, the year the First World War started. His belief that all men should stand united is a message for all times and all seasons. The fact that he could couch such inspirational messages in such uncomplicated verses is what makes Frost one of the greatest American poets of all times. I hope the poem is clear to all of you. Thank you. and see you again.